I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line. Congress set a red line when it ratified that treaty. Congress set a red line when it indicated that in a piece of legislation titled the Syria Accountability Act that some of the horrendous things that are happening on the ground there need to be answered for. My credibility is not on the line. The international community's credibility is on the line. And America and Congress's credibility is on the line because we give lip service to the notion that these international norms are important. A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized. That would change my calculus.
Well, we heard what he said last year. It would change my calculus. He took possession of it. He drew the line. The idea that there is this abstract line drawn in 1925 by the protocol, the Geneva Protocol that passed in that year, is preposterous. He refers to the international community. It doesn't exist. It's a fiction. Liberals are always speaking about the international community. What's the community of interest between Russia and the U.S. that agree on nothing, and particularly not on this, or the United States and Iran, Britain and others? There is no community acting in concert. It is nations acting in their own interest. And Obama is trying, with a sort of slip of language and with a clever formulation, to pretend that this is in his creation, the line is his, and somehow he also included it's the line drawn by the international community, but he adds onto that also by the Congress. So now he wants to imply that it isn't him who's made this ultimatum, essentially. It's the Congress, and it has to live up to its obligations. This is a way of a president who narcissistically always speaks about the me and my. In fact, a week ago he spoke about the my military, an astonishing formulation, who, when it suits him, decides it's not the me or my, but this is a responsibility that belongs to Congress. I don't think it's going to work. Everybody understands it's about him. And I think he's the one who'll be damaged if it doesn't pass in Congress.
I have watched debates in Congress. A congressman asked Mr. Kerry, is there al-Qaeda? People say they have got stronger. He says, no. I say officially they aren't here. The main combat unit, the so-called al-Nusra, is a unit of al-Qaeda. They know about this. It was not pleasant for me to see this. Well, we communicate with them and assume that they are decent people. He lies openly, and he knows that he lies. This is sad.
State Department responding, this is certainly not the first time we've seen a visceral response from President Putin. Needless to say, the Secretary of State testified truthfully and accurately to the Congress. Final word before the second panel.
Putin, who himself lies every other day, sees no reason whatsoever to be diplomatic or circumspect in attacking the United States or its officials. He's conducted a huge, vicious anti-American campaign domestically, not seen since the Soviet days. So he's continuing this. And when Obama arrives in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, he's going to continue the humiliation and attacks on the U.S. because there's never a consequence.
I want to change the military equation on the battlefield. I think any observer, all of us included, would agree that unless Bashar Assad believes that he is going to lose, it would be impossible for him to negotiate a peaceful settlement and departure from Syria.
I still am cautious about whether we should use U.S. military force in support of the opposition for the purpose of tipping the balance. I think there's other ways we can contribute to that through the development of a moderate opposition. But I remain cautious about taking the opposition's role here in the civil war.
Charles, the President said today, I always preserve the right and responsibility to act on behalf of America's national security. When asked about if Congress votes him down, will he still go ahead? He said he didn't just bring this as an empty exercise, but suggested, he wants Congress on board, but if not?
I don't think it's a sudden embrace of the separation of powers or of a renewed interest in constitutional action in which he brings in the Congress. On domestic issue, he hasn't shown any interest in that. And all of a sudden, he develops a religion on the eve of the supposed strike. The reason is he was alone and naked in the world. He didn't have Russia. He didn't have the UN. He didn't have the Security Council. He didn't have the Arabs, who, yes, are very much opposed but won't lift a finger, and didn't even approve in the resolution of the Arab League support for a unilateral or any kind of action against military action against Syria. And he lost our closest ally in Britain. He had nobody. Here are Obama and the Democrats who mocked the Bush administration for a unilateral intervention in Iraq, where he had a coalition of almost 50 countries, and he can't get 1.5. So he had to have the Congress. That's the reason he did that switch in the end. He knew how alone he was and how he needed a cover. This is a cynical exercise in political cover, and the language he offered McCain that everybody approved is simply language. It will have no effect on the policy, and I think it's a sop that is not worth the words, the ink it's written with.
I think what you're looking at in the House of Representatives, though, is a different group, and they're likely to decide the vote, and I think vote against this. And that is a group of people who are not at all non-interventionists. They just don't want to be following this president on this policy at this time because he hasn't laid it out properly.
That means you're just angry at Obama. And I think there are larger issues than Obama here.
Absolutely
not. It's not Obama as a person, it's Obama as a leader who is lost in the woods.
On the substance,
and
they oppose him on the substance.
This has been a Sunfish production.